Greetings, everyone. How's it going? Thanks for joining us today. This is your co-host, Dervin, with Synonyms of Sound.
And this is your second co-host Tony, and I'd like to introduce Alana Taylor. Alana, how's it going today?
Good. How are you guys?
Very, very
We're doing
good.
great.
Thanks
We're
for
doing great.
joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Before, before Tony, I know you always jump in with a good question to start, but I must say it definitely is an honor to have someone so accomplished on the show. I'm a big fan, and really looking forward to the conversation.
Yes. And just to emphasize with that, she is the most highly decorated winter black female Olympian. I mean, that is pretty impressive. When you accomplished that, what was that feeling like?
Yeah. I had no idea it was even an accolade I was even up for. So I knew Shawnee Davis. He had four medals. I knew
Four, yes,
of
correct.
his accomplishments and everything like that. But I never really took stock and saw and thought about how I would rank in that ranking or anything like that. Like obviously I had known about Vanetta Flowers and some of the others who had won medals in the past, but I never really thought about it because I was just out there on a daily basis trying to do the best I can to win medals, period. But it is really such an honor to have my name up there and then to be able to represent not only myself, my country, but also the people, my ancestry as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, and 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 this is my first time speaking to an Olympian. What does it mean to represent your country to you? And I don't want to like start off so dark and gloomy, but during Black Lives Matter, COVID, everything that kind of led up to where you made this big accomplishment this year. What does that mean to you today, and has it changed over the years?
Oh, I'm still incredibly proud to represent this country. We, without a doubt, have our faults and we, without a doubt, have our problems. But I, I think you'd have a hard time finding any country that doesn't have a history of trouble or of
I
something
agree.
that you could find wrong with it. So, I'm extremely proud to represent this country. I come from a military family, and, my grandparents worked so hard to even be able to come to this country and be citizens. I have my grandfather's Jamaican, and then came via Panama and actually joined the U.S. military when they occupied the Panama Canal zone. So
Oh wow.
for him to sacrifice everything to join the military, to join the U.S. military, just to do anything he can to gain citizenship, it shows how much it means to be a part of this country. And love it or leave it, it's still has a lot of opportunities for us, even with all that we've been through as a people.
Awesome. And as you think about um, like your community, your background, your ethnicity, like what does it mean to like hold that accolade? Where I feel that in certain sports, especially within Winter Olympics, it's highly dominated by Caucasians or other ethnicities. So what does that mean to you, like being that level of success?
Yeah, so winter sport is kind of what we see is like white as the snow is what we say. It's not a sport space where you find a lot of people of color, but people of color can be very successful in it, including people from warmer climates. Like I'm from Georgia, so I did not grow up bobsledding or anything like that. So people who look like us can be successful in winter sports, and hopefully, my success and the success of those before me and the success of those after me will continue to show that we belong.
Awesome.
And what does that preparation look like? I assume you're spending most of the time or most of your downtime in Georgia with your family. Um, where do you go to train for bobsledding?
Yeah, so bobsled is one of those sports that you can only do in the winter months.
Okay.
A lot of the other sports, skiing and snowboarding, they can go to the southern hemisphere and ski and do those kind of things. But we don't have any tracks in the southern hemisphere, so we just have to wait on the northern hemisphere to get cold for winter. So from October to April, we're traveling around the world. We're training. Our home tracks are Lake Placid, New York, and Park City, Utah. And after that, we're Germany, Switzerland, all those different types of countries. But on the other side, from April to October, because there's no tracks open, we can't actually do our sports. So we're just running and lifting to get as fast as strong as possible to prepare for our long season ahead. And we can train anywhere. So yes, I train right here home with Georgia.
Nice.
Awesome. So I knew that you started your career in baseball, and I want to talk about bobsledding a little bit more. But tell me a little bit about how did softball, sorry, become like a sport that you took on? You took it on in high school. It sounds like it in college. So can you talk us a little bit about how that journey started?
Yeah, so I decided at the age of 9 that I was going to be an Olympian. I didn't care what it took. I was going to be there, be an Olympian, and then it really just kind of progressed from there. But I played a variety of sports all the way through high school. Played soccer, basketball, softball, track, you name it. I played it and was just really into the different sports seasons. So after that, though, I felt like I needed to specialize going into college, so I decided to go play softball at the George Washington University. Played there and then played a season professionally. I really loved the game and thought that was my best option to go to the Olympics. So, and then also had an Olympic tryout. And when I had this Olympic tryout, like I was like 19, 20, something like that. And when I say it was the worst tryout in the history of tryouts, it was objectively the worst tryout in the history of tryouts. So um, that was pretty much the end of my softball career. And softball was taken out of the game. So I knew if I wanted to be an Olympian, I need to find something else.
Gotcha.
Do you ever wear your medals like kind of just to flex?
No, no. My first medal I wore around quite a bit, but now there's 5 of them and they're all over a pound each, so they're pretty heavy. So I don't wear them around. I'll take them to events and things like that. But other than that, you're so focused on the day to day. Even though I've accomplished these amazing things, you're so focused on what's got to be done every day that they don't really come out much.
Gotcha, gotcha. So why do you think that tryout was like the worst tryout that you've ever had? Like, were you not getting your stops? Like, could you give us a little bit more? Were you not mentally ready for your first Olympic tryout? Just a little
Uh,
sense about what went wrong.
Yeah, with softball being taken out of the games, I knew it was going to be my last opportunity to make an Olympic team, or so I thought. So, I was young, 19 or 20, and so I just put a lot of pressure on myself to go out there and do it then. And at the time, I didn't have the same perspective on pressure as I do now. Like now, I view pressure as a privilege and something to really enjoy and really use excitement. But
Mm,
back then, it was just pressure. And back then, it was, oh, this is my last chance. So basically, I just couldn't handle it. And it was a disaster.
gotcha. So I remember reading that during that time of that particular tryout that went not as well as you would have liked, your parents mentioned to you try out bobsledding.
Hmm.
I know you mentioned that your parents were originally from Jamaica. I know in the past Jamaica had a really prolific bobsledding team. There was a movie made by them. Was that the reason why they suggested that particular sport, or like I feel like bobsledding is somewhat random
Hmm.
for just something to just go try this to see if you can be an Olympian? Like, how did that all work out? And your thought process around taking that seriously as a recommendation?
Yeah, no, Cool Runnings was not their inspiration at all. So
Okay.
they had actually seen Vanetta Flowers, who was the first African American to win a gold medal at the Winter Games. She
Mm,
won in 2002, and she was from Birmingham, Alabama. So they saw her be successful and were like, hey, if she can do it, she's from right down the road. She looks like you. Not exactly facial features, but
mm-hmm.
she's black and she came from track and field, different sport. So if she can be successful in it, there's no reason you can't. So after that point, I just Googled it, emailed the coach, and got invited to a tryout in Lake Placid, New York.
Wow. I mean, the initiative. I mean, and your parents just believing that you can do anything, like switch sports and become an Olympian and getting your first medal 3 years afterwards as the brakeswoman. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, bobsled, the good thing about bobsled is we look for strong, fast, and powerful people, and those are my strengths in softball. And you'll find those strengths in athletes in a lot of different sports. Like we have soccer players, basketball players, rugby, football, track and field, a lot of track and field. So you have athletes from other sports, and you start bobsled later in life, so usually around your 20s. And then we teach you
Mm,
how to do everything else. So it is a sport for adults, it is a sport for basically second chances. Although we've had now summer Olympians come in and do the sport and then go back to summer, so it wasn't really a second chance. It was just another opportunity.
gotcha.
Are there any sports that you're really good at that no one knows, or I guess the general public knows that you can play?
Um, in high school, I was pretty good in basketball. I got highly recruited. Same with track and field. Same with soccer. So I I still hold the career saves or the single game saves record as a goalie in high school, which was 24, which is a ton of
Wow.
saves, but
Yeah.
that also
It also
shows
means
you.
that your team kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think that record's going down anytime soon. But I did get recruited off of it, so it's, yeah, could have gone down a couple different paths, but definitely softball was my passion, so that's what I decided to follow.
Awesome,
Awesome.
awesome.
Winning.
And
Sorry about
oh,
that, Tony. I was just
go
gonna
for it.
ask, winning that first medal. Can you kind of, I guess, talk through what that experience was like the nostalgia of it?
Yeah, the first medal is like just incredible because we came in as underdogs. We weren't expected to win, and the only ones who really believed that we could was ourselves. So my pilot was relatively new. Obviously, that was my first game, so we just looked at it and really went and had fun. And something I've carried into my following Olympics is just enjoying the opportunity. Like one of the things that happened is when we were standing on the starting line, my driver looked over at me and smiled. And she wasn't the type of person who smiled just generally at all. So to have her smile in that moment meant she was really enjoying it. And I've really carried that into my following Olympics. And that's really what's been one of the key to my success is just really enjoying it. And the first medal, it just was like a dream come true. And after you win your first medal, you're just like, nobody can tell me anything. I've reached the pinnacle of sport. I don't need to do anything else with my life. I'm set. But then, you know, then the dust settles and everything reels in, and you're like, what's next? And for me, it was getting to the front seat and starting to drive.
Awesome.
Nice.
So, what age were you when you won your first medal? If you don't mind me
I
asking.
think I was 25. Yeah, I think so.
And then this year you won your most recent medal, correct?
Yep. Won 2 medals this year, and I'm 37 years old, so still after it.
37. Wow. Can we expect you to be at the next Olympics? Like, what does that look like? I mean, that's a very long span of like professional accomplishment. Staying like ready and physically prepared. Like, what is next for you? Are you gonna compete again? Like, what's the thought process about that?
So in bobsled, every year we have 8 World Cups and a World Championships. So I'll definitely compete again within that circuit. But whether or not I'll make it to the Olympics, I'm really not sure at this point. Like it's 4 years down the road. I'm just going to take it year by year and see how things go and see. Like physically, there's no doubt in my mind I would be fine to keep competing and do everything that I would need to do. But it's just mentally, there's other things that I want with my life. I want to continue to expand my family. And just start working on my professional career. So whether or not I'll compete in the Olympics is still remains to be seen.
Gotcha. Awesome.
And what's that been like? Just kind of, I guess, balancing the family side of things with the responsibility that it comes when it comes time to compete.
Yeah, so my family comes with me everywhere. My husband's on the men's bobsled team, so that kind of helps. He's there. The men's and the women's teams travel together and compete on the same day actually and everything like that. So we travel everywhere together. My son is now 2 years old. We take him everywhere with us, and it's really just been a family adventure. There are some days that are complete chaos, but we wouldn't have it another way. Like the when my husband started bobsledding, we met within bobsledding, but when he started bobsledding for a couple of years, we were on different circuits and different races and things like that. But we made a decision that we wouldn't go a month, at least a month without seeing each other. So after we made that decision, we've made every effort possible to see each other and to be with each other as much as we can.
Wow.
Awesome. Wow, that makes things a lot easier for sure.
Yeah.
Playing the same sport and traveling as well.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably have a great impact on your kids also, just being able to see that and be a part of that journey.
Yeah, I mean, part of that's the reason that we even went to these past Olympics in Beijing, is just to show my son what's possible and to have him be a part of it the entire time. We never wanted to go out there and have our kids be the reason we stop living our dreams because they can come apart. They could be a part of our dreams too. I mean, Nico, my son, is my biggest dream. So there's no reason I can't bring him along with me as a bobsledder. And so he's been able to witness everything, the ups and downs and everything. And no, he won't remember it, but we'll be able to show him what we went through and the experiences and everything. And he'll see himself right in those pictures, which is going to be really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. So could you tell me, so the sport that you compete in is a two-person bobsledding sport, correct?
We have 2 person and then we have monobob. Monobob is one person in the sled and it debuted this year. in the Olympics. And then we also have four man. I've done four man, but just not at the Olympic level. So four man is me competing with three guys behind me. So, yep.
Got it. So could you give us a little bit more of the technical aspect? I know that you've gotten a couple of accolades as being a brakewoman. Like, what does that specifically mean? And the component of your pilot, like, what is her responsibility in the scenarios where you have been able to place?
So, starting with two man. Two man is two people in the sled. There's a brakeman in the back of the sled and a driver pilot in the front of the sled. The brakeman in the back of the sled, both the pilot and the brakeman push the sled off the top of the hill. This 400-pound sled. We push it for about 30 to 50 meters and then hop in. The pilot hops in first, the brakeman hops in second, and then in the back of the sled, the brakeman sits with their head in between their knees and they can't see anything. So the whole way down, they're just trusting the pilot to get them down safely and fast. And then after they cross the finish line, then the brakeman pulls the brakes. The pilot, on the other hand, is actually navigating these sleds down the track. So we drive a sled. We don't lean or anything like that. We are actually piloting a sled with a different pulley system in the front of a sled, and we're making split-second decisions to get down as fast as we can, pulling left and right to steer the sled left and right. So it takes quite a while to become a skilled pilot, but that's what they do. The piloting is the same in the monobob and the four-man. It just depends on how light the sled is, because the sleds will steer slightly different and things like that, and based off of how fast you're going, they'll steer slightly different. So there's nuances there, but for the most part, it's the same kind of mechanism. In the monobob, it's just the pilot. The pilot pushes the sled all by themselves and hops in. And in the four person, obviously, you have the pilot, you have the brakeman, and then you have two guys on the side who hop in as well. So I won my first medal in the back as a brakeman in 2010. The next two medals in 2014 and 2018 were silver as a pilot in the front of the sled. And then the next two, the first one was a silver in the monobob, which is just a one person. And then the final one was a bronze in the two person again.
Awesome. Um, how easy or difficult is it to switch from being a brakesman, a pilot? Is it very interchangeable? Does that happen very often, or is your situation very unique?
No, so it takes quite a while to become a skilled pilot. So how it works is usually you start at lower points down the track and then work your way up the track. It's kind of like driving a car. You learn very slowly and then you eventually graduate up to the top of the track, and then you're racing and then you're doing all these types of things. So it takes a while to become that kind of level. And there are quite a few brakemen who switch, just not too many medal winning brakemen. So I was the first woman to win a medal as both a brakeman and a pilot in the Olympics, and so far I'm the only one. So
Wow.
it is quite difficult to make that transition, and some people are more successful than others.
Wow. Like, I thought before, like, you were super accomplished. Like, more and more I'm hearing about your story is just validates your accomplishments. Um, so could you tell us a little bit about, I feel in certain industries there is a more appreciation. For example, the women's soccer team,
Mm-hmm.
Olympic soccer team, they've won many accolades, but they don't get the recognition as the male soccer team.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same in bobsledding
I mean, four
for
man
men
is
versus women?
Yeah, four man is the highlight of the games. It's always been the biggest marquee event, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to drive four man sleds and did drive four man sleds. But I think the women's races are getting more and more competitive, and they're getting more exciting to watch. So hopefully, and that's the thing about driving a bobsled. The men, there's no difference in the driving mechanism between the men and the women. So there's no difference in that skill level. Men and women can drive just as equally. There's a difference at the push at the first 50 meters, but not
Mm-hmm.
at the driving component. So hopefully, women's bobsled starts to get on par with men's. Oddly enough, this Olympics, though, the monobob competition was the most watched event of the Olympic Games. So obviously, we're putting in our work.
Awesome, awesome. That's amazing. And tell me about, be, except your first medal you won, or your last medal that you won, or last two that you won. Which one in between was the most challenging? Or which event you felt was like, I'm not sure if we're gonna place. I don't know what the outcome is gonna be, or like, what was the most difficult? Because I know I'm gonna touch on COVID and this year in a little bit, because I know you contracted COVID, you had to go through isolation and some stuff. But has there been any other season where you were like, you just wasn't too sure you're gonna go all the way?
Well, every Olympics is not fraught without its challenges. So my first Olympics, my driver pulled her hamstring. My second Olympics, my sled we got in a really bad crash. My sled broke into a million pieces, and they had to repair my sled off of a sled
Wow.
that was borrowed from the Team USA house. My third Olympics, I tore my Achilles, and then this Olympics, of course, COVID. So every single Olympics, there's
Wow.
plenty of challenges to go around. There is no easy medals, and there are definitely people who haven't had the same kind of challenges as I have. But Olympics is fraught with adversity for sure.
Gotcha. So how do you mentally overcome that? Is it having your partner there or your family behind you, or not the pressure, but the need to represent your country correct the way you feel fit? Like what really drives you with to overcome all that adversity?
I mean, one huge piece is my family and them and my husband specifically willing and being able to keep me as positive as possible, regardless of what challenges I face, and really setting into plans and really staking out plans to help overcome any obstacles. So when I tore my Achilles, it was him remodeling my shoes, coming up with workouts, coming up with different plans to just try and get me on the ice and get me able to push as fast as I possibly could. And also him taking care of me afterwards on the aftermath when I completely destroyed it and needed to rehab it and do all the things afterwards. So, he's the best partner I could ever ask for on and off the ice. So I'm really blessed to have him. But then other than that, it's really first about recognizing that adversity is going to happen to everybody and not getting into this woe is me because it's part of it. It's part of the sport. And taking that kind of perspective really helps you start to put things in order to overcome it because you only have a choice. That's your only choice is to figure out a way around it, and there's always a way around any obstacle. You just have to figure it out.
Makes complete sense. Definitely makes complete sense. And could you tell me a little bit about? I saw that you were the Women's Sports Foundation president. What's
Mhm.
that all about?
Yeah, so the Women's Sports Foundation is an organization designed to promote equity in sports for women and girls, all ages, all sports. We want women and girls to have equal opportunity. So we do everything from grassroots level, making sure little girls down the street can play basketball, all the way up to the elite level, and making sure sumo wrestlers get recognized at the international level. So we cover a really broad spectrum of things, and I had the honor of being that president for about a year and serving in that organization and just really working to not only protect Title IX, but strengthen it as well and do everything we can to make sure we have equal opportunities.
Awesome. Is there anything that you feel super accomplished about during your tenure as president and what's taken place since you left the organization and handed it off to someone else?
I think just really my role as president was really to continue to fundraise and continue to help build the organization. And we did have a really successful year fundraising. And, the word is continuing to get out about the Women's Sports Foundation and we've continued to grow. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of. And, now we're going bigger and badder and just trying to make sure women everywhere have equal opportunities.
Awesome. Awesome. Dervin, I'm gonna let you jump in with a question if you have one.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was having some connection issues, and it took me out. And but I'm happy to be back. But I guess is there any advice that you can give to high school athletes, collegiate athletes who might be interested in exploring a different sport, but like aren't sure like how it will pan out and things of those sorts?
I mean, that's the thing is you never know how anything will pan out. But the coolest thing is you have the decision to make to go after it regardless. And when you allow yourself to just give yourself the freedom to try it without any expectation, you're gonna see how magical that could be. You're gonna see how fun that can be, and that's the really thing is going into it without the expectation of yes, you're gonna be the greatest in the world or you're gonna be the worst in the world or anything like that. Just truly go in without any expectation. Go in and just try to learn as much as possible. And that's what I did with bobsled. I just went in and tried to learn the sport first, and good things happen. So don't be afraid, go after it, and just be willing to learn.
Awesome.
Nice.
Is there anything about the Olympics that we don't see that kind of happens behind the scenes that would be something that the public should know or interesting?
I mean, I think the biggest thing about the Olympics is the amount of preparation that goes into it. People think we just show up every 4 years and just get on the ice and slide, but it takes a long time in order to become this skilled. And we are not government funded. We are not, you know, we don't have big paychecks or whatever. We mostly pay. Most of the people in our sport actually end up paying to do this, and it is one of the most expensive sports, bobsled in particular. So we do this sport because we love it, because we love our country, and the amount of time and preparation spent on it. It's a full time job, and it is my full time job. And I love my job, but at the same time, there's a lot of dedication, hard work, and sacrifice that goes in every single day, not just once every 4 years at the Olympics.
Awesome. I think that is definitely something true. I feel that people don't realize the amount of sacrifice, the travel, the fact that you have to go all over the world and you're paying out your own pocket. Would there be anything that if you were given the power to make a change that you would change with about the Olympics and how the athletes are maybe accommodated or appreciated?
Yeah, every athlete who made it to the Olympics would get paid. That's not the case right now, believe it or not. People think we are, but you don't get a dime for making it to the Olympics. And like I said, it actually costs a lot to try and make it there. This year alone, just in the blades of my blades, which are my runners, which go on the bottom of my sled, I spent over 12 grand just on those alone this year. And I've
Wow.
been doing the
Wow.
sport for 15 years. So in 15 years later, I'm still spending out that kind of money year in and year out. And that's just on two pieces of equipment. So just goes to show you is that we pay a lot for our sports. We pay a lot to try and get as good as we can at it. And if I could change anything, I would definitely pay Olympic athletes. You're never going to get the money like, the professional football or NBA or things like that. But there's definitely room to compensate us a little bit, at least for making the Olympics.
I cannot believe that. I did not know that. Olympic athletes don't get paid?
Nope. Every different governing body
I
or
know.
national governing body can choose. Like we in the U.S., you have an opportunity to earn a small stipend, but that's just to cover living expenses, and the amount for us hasn't changed in 15 years. So it's not
Wow.
very much to make money on or anything like that. You're not making money at all. You do have an opportunity to get sponsorship, but for the most part, we have people on the Olympic team that didn't even get a stipend, don't have any sponsors, anything like that. So some of our athletes actually end up joining the military just to try and provide them for themselves while they're doing the sport because yeah, it's we don't get paid.
Wow.
And
That's
most
interesting.
countries offer prize money if you win a medal, but the chances of winning a medal is so little at the Olympics. Most Olympic athletes are never going to see a dime.
Wow.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's crazy. I would definitely think that Olympic athletes should be paid. Is there any team that comes to mind that you've loved to compete against,
Um,
or any country?
I mean, I'm a competitor, so I just love the atmosphere of competition. Not one specific country. I love to beat them all. um, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, Germany is probably the biggest competition within our sport, but Canada's right up there as well. So I love the spirit of competition. I get along with all my competitors because at the end of the day, I'm racing the clock. So doesn't really matter what they do. It's all about what I do in my sled. So I'm able to get along with my competitors who don't really have any spite. So I'm just out there trying to beat everybody.
Got it. So I had a question about the whole lack of pay. So if I'm correct, and Derby, correct me if I'm wrong. I think college basketball players are now being able to be paid for performing. Is that correct?
I believe they are in or they can in some capacity now.
They can get
Okay.
sponsorships,
Yeah.
things like that, and we can get those too. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of times our markets are a little bit more difficult. We're not on TV. We're on a daily basis. We're not on ESPN.
Mm,
NBC holds all the rights, and if you're a brakeman in the back of the sled, most of the time, you don't even get the same publicity as the pilot. So sponsorship opportunities within the Olympic space are pretty limited. So it's very hard to really make a living.
got it. Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Some
Makes
of
sense.
the college athletes are definitely doing a lot better than some Olympic athletes right now.
I
Which
mean,
is so interesting.
it's so interesting. Like the the platform is so much, I think, bigger for Olympics because it's such more worldwide recognition. Like you are truly the world's best athlete because you
Mhm.
beat everyone in the world. So this is very interesting.
Yeah, but it's also once every 4 years that kind of platform. Like our World Cup races, most people don't even know we had World Cup races or World Championships because they're not as widely televised. Versus, basketball games, college basketball games, they're on every night, and
Yeah,
so those athletes are getting that constant exposure. And then you have to remember about sponsorship is they're not beholden to athletes; they're trying to sell product. And what's going to sell them the
True.
product is one athlete you see once every 4 years, or the athlete you turn on your TV and see every night. So that's I think the biggest difference in the marketplaces, and it'll be interesting to see now that the college athletes can get paid how this progresses and how it affects or doesn't affect the Olympic athletes as well.
And that's a good point. So I guess exposure what's most important. I feel like this is like a movie coming or a book or something coming about your life. Is that in the works? Like, could we break that news to the public that something is coming out?
I wish. I do want to write a book someday. Haven't gotten to it yet. I've put notes on paper and things like that, but haven't started putting the pen to the paper in a real serious way. So it's definitely one of those things that's going to happen. I just don't know when yet.
Got it. What about the movie? I know we're skipping over the movie idea. So is the movie happening? It sounds like it's happening.
Nah, I have no idea about a movie. It'd be really fun to be in a movie or to have a movie about my life, and I've got no idea if that's happening. So nothing's in
Okay.
the works yet.
Okay. Nothing's the work. It's okay.
well, I think we've put it out in the universe here right now. So if it does happen, I hope you don't mind if we take a little credit for that.
No, I think you should.
But I must
So
say I do absolutely commend you. Like me personally, I feel like because of I guess that 4 year gap and the fact that like collegiate athletes might get more like sponsorships or exposure. I think because of that, I'd have those medals on as many times as possible when I'm traveling. Gas station medal on, groceries medal
Your neck would be really sore. It would be really sore.
on.
All right. So I'll just ask one more question and then we can start to wrap up. Um, if there's one thing that you'd want to leave for your children, the next generation of bobsledders or female athletes, like what's that one thing that you'd want to leave with them based on your success, what you've overcome, and what's allowed you to stay steadfast in your goals?
Um, I guess it would be the notion that just because things are hard, just because things are difficult, don't doesn't mean they're impossible. There's always a workaround, always a way to find a way to make it happen, and you just have to be willing to go after it and find the way. So that would be the biggest thing is I would say to them is just find the way. Don't stop at no, just find the way.
Awesome.
And to wrap, essentially every guest that we have, we always try to close with this question,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much it's when you are preparing, when you have a goal at hand, the end goal, and you're working diligently to make sure you're prepared to hit that goal. When there is adversity, some or scrutiny or any type of hate or distractions, how do you block out that noise and stay focused on the goal at hand?
Yeah, well, one of the very practical things like I do at races and stuff is literally block out the noise by wearing headphones, dancing. I am one of those people who loves to just stay relaxed and loose before a race, so you got to just be willing to get out there and dance. And I think that's what kind of applies to life. The thing I like to think about is like with social media and things like that, there's always going to be haters, there's always going to be trolls, but you just have to guard yourself. You just have to guard your own emotion and your own energy. And for every one person who says something negative, there's going to be 20 people who say something positive, but we tend to focus on that one negative. So I think the easiest thing is just to not get too wrapped up in what other people think, especially people on the internet that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Or in some cases you might know them, but for the most part, they have no substantial meaning in your life. So, just turn it off in some sense, but also realize, they have no impact on the outcome. They are sitting there tweeting or messaging you because they haven't done what you're trying to do. So you just have to not take that in mind and literally block it out. Literally turn it off or put on your headphones and just dance.
All
I
right.
like that.
Quick follow up. What are two of your go to dance songs?
Um, Who Run the World? Beyonce, of course,
Ooh, that's a good one.
and or Girls Run the World rather. And I guess this past Olympics is Camila Cabello. Um, don't go yet. So yeah, those are two of my top ones.
Good choice. Good choice. And I didn't even think about that. The last statement you said about trolls. I feel like I only look at Olympians in such a positive sense because like not anyone can get to that stage. But what would a troll say to you? Like, you made my country lose. Like, if you could share like anything that was like, really, this person sent me this. Like, it's just really interesting to think that you guys will have trolls or haters because um, it's just kind of weird to me for some reason.
Oh, I think any female athlete would tell you that they've been called a man on the internet more times than they can count, because you're
Wow.
muscly, or because whatever else you compete hard, and you get that all the time. Comparisons to different men and all that kind of stuff like that. For me, I've gotten, oh well, you didn't win gold, so it doesn't matter, all that kind of stuff. So I don't have a gold medal yet, but it's people trolling me about that, or trolling you about anything. The people will find anything to try and troll you about. But like I said,
Yeah.
they haven't done what you're trying to do, or they haven't done what you've already done. So
Or they
um,
probably can't come close. I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
5 medals. They haven't
yeah.
even come close. 5 medals.
Taking the
That
time to type that disrespect is probably the most or closest they'll get to being an Olympic athlete. So.
Olympic Twitter fitter competition.
Well, I don't know why people troll. I think obviously it's something wrong with them, not something wrong with you. So you just take it with a grain of salt like that. Like there's something obviously going on in their lives that they're unhappy about.
Got it. All right. I mean, this was definitely a pleasure. Definitely a highlight of my day today, and um, looking forward to seeing more of your accolades being accomplished and your accomplishment as an
Absolutely.
Olympian and as a professional and as a mom as you look to grow your family. Wish you the best of luck.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Pleasure talking to you with you guys.
Definitely a pleasure. Thank you.